Okay, we have another question in the audience before we go over to our text and chat feature.
Okay.
Hello, sir. I'm Lauren Eckert, also from ITL. My question kind of ties into that. So as far as the different opportunities that you've had to step outside of your comfort zone, I imagine, a few times. What kind of value did that provide? And also, just to tie in a little bit more, at our level, it's a little difficult to see the bigger picture, like you mentioned. Is there a source or a way that you keep abreast of what's going on in these different arenas that we could maybe capitalize on?
Yeah, so I've stepped out of my comfort zone almost since the day I walked out of college. Because my comfort zone was so tight. It was, I tell the story of when I left. My hometown is Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And so I'm in North Carolina, and my first job offer was actually Environmental Protection Agency in Atlanta. And it didn't matter that it was Environmental Protection Agency. I didn't know them from the Corps of Engineers or anybody else, but it was a fact I had to leave North Carolina and go all the way to Atlanta, big city Atlanta. And so, I used to ride around on the weekends with my wife, and so we'd look around, well, we won't be able to see this kind of country setting anymore, thinking we're going to the big city Atlanta. And that comfort zone expanded from going from North Carolina to Atlanta to Cairo, Egypt, to Saudi Arabia, to Alaska. And so, all of those things were outside of my comfort zone in terms of what I'm used to. Now, in terms of work, my comfort zone, up to a point, sort of expanded as natural as it should. If you look at my career, and it was like, okay, so you can see you go from point A to point B to point C, and all of a sudden, then you start jumping into things like, this SES world. And so, sitting in Atlanta, I was not just responsible for engineering and construction, but also strategic communications. Resource management was my responsibility, contracting was my responsibility. And so all of those things were beyond what I was more comfortable with. So what I had to do, and that's kind of the sort of starting as self-teaching, spent a lot of time with people to help me teach, but I had to kind of review these things, get comfortable with them myself. I don't think you'll avoid that unless we can get to these training plans where we can help you out. But for situational awareness, none of that comes free and easy either. What I would tell people is in your career, there's a few things you should try to be. One of those is an expert in something. You shouldn't be an expert forever and go, just stay in that world, but you should be an expert in something so you can call that your own. And I feel like construction is mine. I'd like to think there's nothing you can ask me about construction that given 15 minutes I can't get an answer, because I still try to read those journals and periodicals to stay abreast of what's happening in that world, because that's my comfort zone. No matter where I am, I feel good about what I do because I know something. I know construction, and so other things now have to kind of expand beyond that, and so the situational awareness is a little harder to keep up with what's going on in Congress, who's who in Congress, what's going on within the administration, what are they thinking. It's tough, it's a lot of work. Fortunately, you got a lot of people that can kind of help you with that. And so I think it is, depending on the job that you're in, trying to identify, what are the influences around you, what are the kind of things that you think you should know. What is somebody going to come up to you and say, ask you a question that, and so what you're trying to do there is you're trying to determine what is your sphere of knowledge, what should it be, and then just try to, as much as possible, get information about that. Google's pretty great. It's like, yeah, find almost anything out there.